Good morning, everybody. Today is September 23rd, 2022, and this is Free Coaching Friday, where for an hour every Friday, I'm here and I am really eager to answer questions, talk about spiritual subjects, talk about metaphysical stuff, talk about energy healing, talk about anything woo. I am an energy healer and a coach, and I'm also a medium. I spent 3 summers at a spiritualist camp talking to dead people for folks. It's not my most fun thing to do. In fact, when I first started doing that work, and I didn't even know that I could do it, I was hired at a spiritualist camp when I was still looking for another job. And it turned out that I was really good at it. But my guide said, don't worry about people that come to you. We are going to, don't worry about it. We are going to send you people who need what you do. And what you do is not necessarily evidential. So I don't really enjoy evidential mediumship, which is when we connect with someone that the client has had in their life, a spouse, a child, grandparents, friends who have passed on, and those people have messages for the querent. And I can do it, but it's not the most fun. My guide said, that's okay. What you are set up to do is to bring forth the information. So we will bring you people who don't need to have it proven to them that you can talk with those who have passed over, those who have previously been embodied and are gone, or that you can talk with your guides or with angels, archangels, whoever is coming in to give the information. And when I said, well, who am I talking to then? What if I don't get an answer when I ask? And my guide said, they sort of rolled their eyes, they sort of crossed their arms and went, oh, we're going to send you the people who need the information you have. You don't need to know who we're talking to. So one of the first pieces that I want to talk about is, what about your guides' names? Right now, there is a well-known psychic who is offering that if you sign up for her programs, she'll send you the first 20, 30 people that sign up, she will send you the name of your guide. Well, our guides don't have names like we do. Our guides actually don't have names. They exist in a different dimension. And so where they are, name doesn't mean the same thing that it means to us who are embodied right here as humans in the material 3-dimensional world. So let me ask you something. If almost everybody who's listening to this, either now live or who comes in at a later date and listens to this recorded, has had a pet or been aware of a pet or been around animals in their lives, and those animals had names. But I ask you a question. What did that animal call itself? What name did that animal give itself? Or what name do other, like if you have a dog, what name do other dogs call your dog? What name do other cats or other horses call your cat or call your horse? Just think about that a minute. We don't have any way of knowing because they live, even though they are in our world, in our physical world, they really live in a different reality than we do. And they have a different way of identifying each other. What is it? I don't know. I can give you some guesses. I can talk about what animals have shown me, how they identify each other and how they refer to each other. I could talk about that. And that might be an idea for a Facebook Live some Fridays, talking to animals and talking about the animal world that is outside physicality. But I'm using that as an example. Your guides also, your guides, angels, archangels, those who are not embodied are in another dimension. And so they don't have a naming nomenclature like we do. They have something different. They have an energy signature. So what's an energy signature, you ask? So look around the room and find something that's blue. That is an energy signature. If you are in a conversation and you say that blue thing over there, people are going to know exactly what you're talking about. You are naming that thing. If you say that plant up there, that plant, that is a name of a thing. But what does that plant call itself? What is that plant's name? We as humans use names, use nouns to label things so that we can communicate with our brains. But also, every one of you who is here listening to this, either now or later, every one of you has had an experience usually with someone that you love, where you pick up information about them. You just get the information about them. And it didn't happen with words. You were picking up an informational energy signature that they were broadcasting, and you picked that up. So that's an energy signature. What does your guide call itself? It's an energy signature that they can't necessarily give to you in words, but almost always when you ask your guide what their name is or what you should call them, they may have a little discussion with you. You can call me Bill, or you can call me Ray, or you can call me Fred, or you can call me Melchizedek if you want to. But calling them that name doesn't necessarily mean they are going to be the Melchizedek of the Bible. Or if they say Michael, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are the Michael energy, unless you ask specifically for the Michael energy to come to you, which may or may not show up for you at any given time. So when you want to call your guide something, you can name your guide whatever you want to, whatever feels good to you. This is the important thing. What feels good to you? Are you close to what they call themselves? Maybe. But again, they identify themselves. They have their own energy signature understanding that may not be able to be put into words. So you can choose a name that feels good to you. I call my guides, guys. Hey guys, I need some help. Hey guys, would you help me find a parking place? And I do that. I ask them to help me find parking places. I ask them to help me calm down. I ask my guides to help me do many, many things. Every day I have a list of people that I pray for, that I hold energy for, who are going through transformational difficulties, who are ill, maybe who are transitioning out of their bodies or transitioning in. I have a grandson who is about 3 months out from entering into the world. So I also hold him in prayer and connect with him on an energetic level through my prayer. And I ask my guides to help me connect up with him. Let's see. Is there anything else that there is to say about this? Quite often, you may have multiple guides, and they may refer to themselves or themself as one name. Esther Hicks channeling Abraham is the best current example of that. When Esther first started working with the group of entities that call themselves Abraham, she said, "What should I call you?" And they said, "Well, you can call us anything you want to." And she said, "Well, I have to have a name. I feel most comfortable having a name." And they said, "Well, we are a group of beings. We have a group of consciousnesses, and you may call us Abraham." So that's how that name came together. Now, is that what they call themselves? Probably not, because again, they use energetic signature rather than what we would know as a verbal or written name. But it works. It calls that energy in. And because Esther has that agreement with her guides, with Abraham, the guides that call themselves collectively Abraham, when she asks Abraham to come in, and she does that energetically. If you've ever been at a workshop with Esther, she basically grounds herself down, centers in, and she does it quite quickly. She's been doing this work for a long, long time. So she's very quick at it, brings herself in, and then she energetically invites Abraham to join her and speak through her to her audience. And it's basically what happens. It all happens energetically. You may or may not see anything. You may or may not hear anything, but it happens at an energetic level. And because we are energy, even though we have a physical body, even our physical body is a combination of energy that is expressing itself through solid particles. And because we are energy, we can get information. So I hope this is working. I'm using StreamYard, which is a brand new technology for me. And supposedly it's connected up to my Facebook Live, and it's broadcasting on my Facebook, on my Robin Ann Reed Facebook page. So if you came and couldn't find it, I'm really sorry. I'm still learning the technology, and this is recorded so that you can go back and hear this later. But I really wish that I had people who could give me questions and could answer questions this morning. But I could talk about all of this stuff. Tina, there you are. The technology's working here. Thank you, Tina, for letting me know. Tina said, honoring what people call themselves is what we do when we acknowledge the pronouns people prefer. May be hard for us at first, but it's not about us. Absolutely, Tina, that's a really good analogy. Thank you for that. And we in our Western culture are struggling with this a little bit because the nomenclature that we've used to identify gender is changing. And it's not that the gender understanding itself is changing, although that's happening too, because there have always been people who were born in one gendered body who felt that they were another gender, or who felt like they were neither gender or both genders. And we're just coming to understand someone's expression of this. There have been cultures, particularly Native American cultures and some East Indian cultures, who have understood this for millennia. And we in our modern day Western culture are just coming to wrestle with this, to find ways of expressing this, and then to find ways to recognize each other so that we can respect each other's wishes around this kind of identification. Tina, that's really great. So we don't have to worry about what our guides think of us. There's no way that we can do it wrong. So Tina, I'm really glad that you brought this up, because this is a whole nother aspect. When we connect with our guides, there's no way to do it wrong. There's no way that we can insult them. They are basically beyond insult. If we feel hurt, or if we feel disrespected, it's because we ourselves have other issues that are getting activated. And our guides are sort of beyond all of that. Those are three-dimensional embodied issues that are guides who are literally in the fourth, fifth dimensions and above. They don't have to deal with that anymore. They're living in a state primarily of love and compassion. So they do not, hi, Stephanie, they don't take offense at anything. They might talk to us, communicate with us in a way that we might feel admonished, but they are never admonishing us. They are always helping us, and they cannot be insulted. So you can, if you talk with your guides and you have curiosity about that, ask some questions around this sort of thing. You can never call them the wrong thing. They're available to you because they are connected with you. They are actually part of your entire energy signature. You embodied, you as a soul embodied, are also connected with your guardian angel, your guardian energy, who is not embodied, but always with you when you're embodied, and then your guides. And then you also have, as I would label them, healers. You also have teachers. You may also have another group, one or group of consciousnesses who help you with various aspects of your life, but don't help with other aspects. I just recently had someone, I did sort of a reading with someone. I started working with an energy healer, and she said, "Oh my gosh, you've got all of these different layers of of beings who are helping you. And I'm doing several different things. I'm the mayor of my village. I'm an energy healer. I'm a grandma. I'm also working with some other projects. And I think probably each of those projects are being assisted by those who are not embodied. I always ask for assistance. I always ask for higher level understanding, higher level connection, so that I can bring through the absolute best for all concerned. That's really one of my phrases I use almost constantly. For the best of all concerned, for compassion for all concerned, for understanding for all concerned, that sort of thing. Stephanie, I know that you work with your guides a lot. I'm curious if you have any questions or any comments. So I'm not just here to answer questions. I'm also here for discussion. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And anybody who's listening, if you have any questions, just type them into the comment section and I can answer them here. I'll answer anything. So anything is on the table. Everything is on the table here. What my intention, hi, Tina. Oh, Tina and I grew up attending the same church in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And Tina says, I'm thinking of words from the Episcopal liturgy that we grew up with. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds. This is bringing up tears for me. I'm sort of choked up. Learning to be comfortable with things beyond our understanding, like the guides, is so hard. You know, it's hard because quite often we grew up in families that didn't know how to support us, that didn't know how to support that awareness that we had. We are born energy beings. We're born these bright, flowing energy packages that happen to coalesce into a little body. But we come in with full consciousness. We just have a body that doesn't know how to express it yet. And our parents came in the same way and came into parents who didn't know how to recognize that aspect of us or those aspects of us. And so because they didn't pay attention, and they may even have shut down some of our awarenesses or even scolded us for talking about things that didn't make sense to them. And so because our parents weren't able to recognize that aspect of us, we stopped paying attention there too. Quite often in this culture and in the culture that we've grown up with in the past 40, 50, 60, 70 years, we really are respected for our thoughts. We're respected for how well we think. We're not always respected so well for how we feel or for how we express in a higher dimensional aspect that we really don't have good language for. So because we were that aspect of us was shut down for almost all of us, we have to relearn. Now the energy literally in the universe is shifting. Energy around the earth is becoming finer and finer vibrational level. And we as human beings, spirit embodied in a physical body, are also impacted by that. And it's easier for us now to connect with a higher dimensional understanding and reality than it was when I was born. I'm in my 60s. And so when I was younger, it was harder to connect with that. I was born very open. I was born very psychic. I had a lot of abilities and my parents shut me down real fast. Let me tell you, they did not like the fact that I knew things. They were very uncomfortable with my expandedness, and they really shamed me and shut me down. Many of us who are born highly sensitive, not just highly sensitive, but highly sensitive and gifted. In other words, we're able to understand that higher dimensional stuff more than most people. Quite often we were heavily shut down, and we came in with that ability to be open. We came in with all of that memory of doing this work in other lifetimes. So we could do that here. And we were shut down because that was the culture that we were born in. And the work was to get back to feeling comfortable with who we actually are so that we could heal all of that old baggage that had been happening for millennia, where people who were gifted in their ability to correspond and to interact with those not embodied were ostracized and killed and harmed over those millennia. So we came back to sort of claw our way back, and in so doing, to heal those patterns so that the patterns are broken and will not go forward. Thank you, Tina. It's big work. It's really big work. Stephanie says, I love the imagery of all of these energies surrounding us. I call in any energies to support me on the daily for the highest good of all. And she feels this deeply. It's difficult to break the boundaries and be open-hearted when our families are afraid to do the same. There's so much fear. And yet we came into those very families so that we could break those bonds. We could break those patterns. We could open the box, open the windows, and let the fresh air and light in, really let in that higher awareness, that higher vibrational energy, and help people walk through their fear and teach them how to listen to their own body. Stephanie, thank you for saying this, because it brings me back to what I really wanted to talk about today, which is, in order to do spiritual work, we have to be aware of our body. We are spirit embodied in a physical body. And most of us have been, that our connection to and awareness of those higher vibrational aspects of our physicality have forgotten how to listen, how to look, how to smell, how to even taste all that information that's coming in through our physicality. We've been taught to think. And because we've been taught to not pay attention to our body, and we've been taught to think, it's a little scary to us to feel our body's reactions to what's going on. I talked last week about what spiritual work is. People think, oh, spiritual work is knowing who your guides are and praying and doing all sorts of woo-woo stuff, knowing astrology, knowing how to work with gems and that sort of thing. Nope. Spiritual work is being in the body and being connected to the divine, being connected to the earth and being connected to the divine. What we call spirituality and what we label as spiritual, you could, if you really inspect what that belief is, it's almost always about something that's a little bit higher vibrational level, a little bit higher awareness, a little bit higher consciousness. And so if you think about what your family called spiritual, what your own personal community calls spiritual, what books are labeled spiritual, it's exploring those kinds of aspects of our life here on earth or beyond, that higher level, that higher vibrational level, that higher level of consciousness. And to be able to work with our own limitations, work with our own traumas, work with our own patterns, and work to answer that longing that literally comes in our heart and our high heart center. It almost feels like we're being pulled forward from this area, our heart and our high heart center, being pulled forward into that higher level work. There's a longing and a yearning there for so many people. What we have to do in order to respond to that longing is listen to our body. Almost always when I have clients come to me, they say some aspect of this. Well, I've been trying to figure it out. This just doesn't make sense. I've been trying to look, and I've been trying to read, and I've been listening, but I'm trying to put it all together so that it makes sense. Basically, what people are saying is, I'm trying to make that information fit into the collection of beliefs, into my own belief system that I have. And in order to do spiritual work, we have to let go of the beliefs that we have from thinking, the beliefs that we've decided on, the beliefs that we know work for us. The beliefs are the patterns that we follow because they're familiar, and we've quite often been told they would work. As I said before, Tina and I grew up in the same church. And even in the very liberal Episcopal church at the time, there was still a belief system that these were the right things to believe. Those are things that you shouldn't believe. Those aren't real. Those aren't right. Those are not correct. We believe this thing. And in order to increase our spirituality, to answer that longing that's happening for so many, we have to look at what it is that we do believe and consider that there might be more. Not that that's wrong, because when we are standing in one place, if you're standing on a particular street corner in downtown Chicago and you look around you, your environment has buildings and sidewalks and street signs and street lights and cars and people. That's one reality. But if you're standing in a path, in a meadow, out in the middle of nowhere, and you look around you, and there's grass and there are flowers and there are insects, and you might see squirrels bounding around, rabbits, maybe even deer or elk, that's a different reality. And so if we are in the reality of our minds and we want to explore the reality beyond our minds in a slightly higher level of consciousness, in a slightly expanded awareness, we have to be willing to put the belief systems that we've used with our minds, that our minds have helped create, and sort of put that to the side. It's not wrong. It just very much functions within a three-dimensional reality. And hold the concept that something else is possible. There might be things that we don't know. In fact, in the aspects of what we know and we don't know, there's a really wonderful diagram. If this is everything, if this circle is everything, and this is what we know of it, the rest of this, oh wait, this is what we know. This is what we know. And this is what we know that we don't know. And this is that everything else that we don't know, that we don't know. And so this is a really big piece of creation. And if we want to explore the places that we're not aware of yet, we really can put our belief system aside. We don't have to say it's wrong. We don't have to let go of all of it, but just open up a little bit more and ask questions. Our body is the transmitter and the receiver. Our body is actually the receiver for information. And our body will tell us where we are. Our body will give us answers that we're going in the right direction, that we're responding to this longing, that we are getting information in. Our body is really what we use to determine where we are and how and where to go. So if we're not in touch with our bodies, if we're trying to figure it out in our brain, all we're doing is we're putting together another idea. We're putting together another story. We're putting together another belief or another belief system that can limit us. But when we are willing to go into the unlimited and we ask for information and assistance from those who are not in bodies. We can also ask those who are in bodies if we know how to listen to them and know how to connect with them. But when we ask, we get information primarily through our bodies. We can feel that information, and it turns up as something like a little shiver running through us. We might have a wave of cold. Our big toe might start hurting. Our vision might get a little wonky for an instant. We might have a feeling of lightheadedness. We might feel heavy. We might feel hot in some area of our body. We might feel cold. We might feel that something just was put in our hand, but we're not aware of it. We have all sorts of body sensations. When I first started studying with Barbara Brennan at her School of Healing, I was in a class of 400 people. We were in our first year of a 4-year program. And on the very first day, in the very first hour of instruction, it was so exciting to be there and to be with all of these people who were in class with us and to be with our teachers who we were going to spend the next 4 years with. The woman who was heading the class at the time, she was the dean of the first year. She welcomed us and she said, "You came here to learn healing techniques, and we are going to teach you that, and it's going to be exciting. But really, that's only going to be about 25% of what you learn. 75% of your work is going to be learning how your body works, learning to use this tool that we all came to use. And once you learn how to use this tool and continue to learn and increase your knowledge and awareness of how this tool actually works within the universe, then you can work with other people. And so you basically spend 4 years learning how your body accepts answers, receives answers, responds to the world around you, seen and unseen. And when you learn what these patterns are, you will be able to interpret what there is coming in. When you know how to listen and you know how to watch for information from guidance, and you know the difference between thinking, imagining, and being lost and actually receiving, when you know the distinctions there, that is when you really can begin to step into the power of what's available to us outside our little thinking worlds. Does anybody have any other questions about this? Anything goes, or any more comments you have about this subject matter? People quite often ask me, my clients ask me, or other people ask me, how did you learn this stuff? Tina said she loves that knowing pie chart and letting go of the belief systems that are ingrained in us by our family, culture, and tradition often takes time and sometimes trauma. And shaking those systems loose takes big action. It takes courage, Tina. Not everybody is ready to do it. Not everybody feels safe to it. Quite often it feels very unsafe because we're stepping outside of what we know. We're stepping way outside of what we know. And we're learning a different language. We might think we're learning many new languages, but it really is the language of the fourth dimension and above, outside of our physical bodies, outside of our thinking apparatus. Our mind is actually not in our physical body. Our mind is in our energy field. Our brain is in our physical body. Our brain is a tool to use to focus and record. And so when we are actually thinking, and experiencing, we are in our mind, which is in our energy field. To science, it looks like we are in our bodies when that happens, but it's also because our energy field goes through our mind. There is scientific evidence now that confirms that thinking actually happens within our energy field. And some of those experiments and some of those papers are so fascinating to read. Many of us have understood that for years and possibly decades. Science is finally catching up to this understanding that mystics have had for eons. Let's see, what did I start talking about? I started going in two different directions. People have asked me, how did I learn about this? What kinds of training did I get? First of all, I did study with Barbara Brennan for 3 years. If anyone is interested, this was our basic handbook. We used this this was the handbook for all 4 years of the school. And this is familiar to many of you who have read a lot about energy healing. I highly recommend that book, Barbara Brennan, Hands of Light. It's quite often in many, many libraries. You can get it through the library if you want to check it out before you get your own copy. I studied with that school for 3 years. Why did I not finish? Because my guides told me that I was done and I didn't want to listen to them. And so they made me fall asleep. And I wasn't able to get my homework connected with my teachers. It was hilarious. My guides told me to stop. I didn't listen. And so everything started falling apart, as is quite often the case when we don't listen to our guidance after we have intended to listen to our guidance. I also, when I was very young, the very first training that I had was in a 12-step program. I was in Al-Anon for almost a decade. I grew up in a family that was alcoholic, didn't know it until I was in my very late teens. When I was 18, my parents realized what was going on, and they entered 12-step programs themselves. And I went into Al-Anon to learn about all the dysfunction that had been in our family. I was determined that I would not bring my children up the same way, and I prayed for help with that. And I was shown Al-Anon, and I learned so much about managing my reality, about managing my awareness, about managing my own emotions, and about how not to be at the effect of other people. Now, that was only the beginning, because this unlearning of what we get from our, as Tina said, our culture, our training, and our family. It takes the rest of our lifetimes, and we are actually working to crack and dissolve eons of training in this realm. Another training that I took was I was in the Landmark Forum for about 10 years, and it is a phenomenal personal growth program. It's very intellectual to start. It's very intellectual to begin the exploration. And once you get into it, you are really brought into your body, and you have emotions come up, you're healing past trauma, and you are looking at the belief systems that you have. I also did the training called Avatar. It is the Avatar program that is administered through Stars Edge in Florida. And the apex of that training was the Wizard's Course. And it is a training that teaches you, literally teaches you to create your existence, to create your experience from nothing. And it was a phenomenal training. I also did that for about 10 years and still use all of the work that I did and all of the learnings and understandings that I got out of those courses and more in my existence today. I've embodied it so much. And I've worked with those programs for so long. I recommend any of them to you. And it really is integrated in who I am and how I function in the world. And I'd be hard pressed to remember which course taught me what thing. Quite often they'd overlap. And so it's really in the heart of who I am in the world. Tina said, do we have to let go before we're ready to accept spirituality? No, happens all at the same time. It's like you can wear two different kinds of socks at the same time. If the belief systems are oppositional, quite often you'll have an inner struggle, Tina, and you may have some of that show up in your experiences in the world, because always, 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 folks, our experience of the world out here is a reflection and a projection of what's going on inside of us, which is, I'm not going to get into relationship stuff now, but which is why we get into relationships that start out so wonderfully and we get hooked in them. And then it turns out that they're difficult. And this person that we thought we were falling in love with and was perfect turns out to be tough and awful and hard to be around and not very nice. They basically are some reflection of the struggle that's going on inside of us. And that person is having a corresponding experience with us. And we struggle with that person that we've been in love with. And if we do the work, we can together as a couple work through to heal all of the difficulty that we've created for ourselves. We can do that together and get to a place where it's really obvious. We then stay together, or it's time to part because those difficulties we came together to heal got healed or got dealt with at the time. So no, we all have, how can I say this, Tina? This is a good question. So spirituality is not one thing. It's not talking about God. It's not praying. It's really a level of vibration. And what I label as spiritual understanding may be very different from someone who is just beginning their search. People who are looking for the name of their guides, they're all excited about these concepts where, a year ago they weren't even interested, and all of a sudden they have interest here. and they want to know how to protect themselves because this feels scary, and they want to know who their guides are. What my experience is of those same things is very different because I've been working for over 40 years on these things. I've been working with this material for over 40 years. So it's a very different understanding of what for me is spiritual than what for them is spiritual, because they're basically in maybe first grade in their spiritual studies. And for me, I'm in the graduate program, but I've still got a cutting edge. There's still, I still am working with this chart. This is what I know. This is what I don't know. And this is what I don't even know that I don't know yet. And I've been working with this stuff for 40 years. So we're all on our own trajectory. Tina, where your cutting edge is, it feels spiritual to you. The things that you want to know, no judgment about what it is. The things that you're exploring, no judgment about where you're exploring. That higher level of stuff, that longing that you have that's pulling you forward in those realms, that's spiritual for you. And you still have some of those old belief systems. And sometimes those things still crash together. And that is what's so exciting. And that's what's so nourishing. That discovery, that journey of learning is so juicy to us. Nothing wrong with wherever you are. And I talked about the person who's maybe in kindergarten who is still learning about protection from what they call dark forces, and where they are in their understanding of what those dark forces really are is very different from what my understanding is. And so they're going to be talking about it a little bit differently. They're going to be understanding it a little bit differently than I do where I am, because I've sort of taken these steps. I'm not better. I've just sort of gone further down the road, and I've had a little bit more experience. But my learning and the learning of this person is just as exciting to each of us, even though we're in very different places. Stephanie, you've been reading Dolores Cannon's work and feeling the connection to non-earthly soul conception. What are my feelings about that? So I can't specifically remember Doris Cannon's work. Can you clarify the question? I'd love to talk about this, but I need a little bit more. Non-earthly soul conception. Do you mean like what we on this earth might call aliens, or people from other planetary or other planetary systems, or other systems of existence? Stephanie, maybe while you're formulating that question, I will say that I think it was in Hamlet that two guys are talking, and they're talking about what the world consists of and what is real, what is true. And one of them says to the other, there are more things there's more in heaven and earth than are dreamed of in our little existences. And that's really so true. So true. There's so much that we don't know. Stephanie says, yes, aliens. She was the woman that she was talking with was a hypnotherapist, and found a lot of people revealed this from their subconscious. I absolutely believe that there are what we call aliens or non-humans who are here on the earth. I think there always have been. What are they? Doesn't matter. You can call them Fred, or you can call them people from particular star systems. You can call them Andromedans, or you can call them Fred. Whoever they are, there are beings that are other than what we know as humans. I also think that there are animals who are here with more than animal consciousness. I've run into so many animals who, when their humans come to me, the animals come up, and the animals might bring their nose right up to the camera, or they might be lying on the floor, and they're communicating with me. Tell my human such and such and so and so. And quite often there are animals who come in with more than cat consciousness, more than dog consciousness. What is it? It isn't that they have horse consciousness or cow consciousness along with it. It's like an expanded awareness of that happens to be in a dog body, an expanded awareness that happens to be in a cat body, while also embodying cat or embodying dog. But they've got a higher awareness, and they came in almost always to assist their human and to help their human grow, to maybe protect their human or hold energy around their human. Quite often our pets exhibit physical ailments that we ourselves have an echo of. And really the animal is working through those energy patterns because they are energetically connected with us, and the patterns get worked through our animal rather than we ourselves having those experiences in our body. And so what about that? I think that there are so many billions and billions and billions, as the famous physicist used to say, of expressions of consciousness in different forms, not just in 3 dimensions, but in other dimensions as well. There's a famous science fiction story that was about consciousness that happened in the 2-dimensional world. And I can't remember the name of the story, but it was fascinating to me. I read it when I was in high school, and it was basically a 2-dimensional world that had the experience of a 3-dimensional being come into it. And they experienced, I think it was that they experienced contact with that 3-dimensional being. And it was so foreign to them, they didn't know what to do with it. I think I'm going to look that story up because it broke open ideas that I had at the time and made me think bigger than I'd ever thought before. And so I do think that those beings are here. I think that they exist in the universe. When you look out at the night sky, how can we think that there isn't other consciousness in form or other consciousness out there, other consciousness there, because it isn't out there. It's like other consciousness here. I also believe that that time is not linear. The linear quality of time was developed by us in 3-dimensional form so that we could keep track of things, so that we could basically tell where we were and have an easier time, have an easier experience because it was orderly rather than everything at once. I've had experiences of being outside of linear time. And I used to call it past lives. When I'm talking to most people, I still call it past lives, but it's really other lives. I've also had an experience of being in more than one place at a time, especially during COVID, that second year of COVID, late 2020, early 2021. I quite often had experiences of being here in my physical body, and I was also here. Sometimes in another body, sometimes without body, but I was just in another experience and something else was going on. Different world. And I can't ever remember what it looked like. It was more an impression and like something going on almost out of my hearing, just out of my hearing, just out of my ability to see. I don't know exactly what that was, but I had that experience. Other people, I've had clients this past year who have said, I have this weird thing happen where I feel like I'm here, but I'm also dreaming at the same time. That's what it was like. And because the energy, the speed at which things are flowing now, at which energy is flowing, is the speed has increased. We are able to exist in finer and finer levels of energy, where there is less and less physicality, where there is less solidness. Where there's a lot of solidness, there's one point. Where we are expanded out, there are more points. There's more that's happening. We don't even have good language to talk about this, folks. We are still playing with and experiencing and creating language to talk from the 3-dimensional aspect about higher dimensional aspects, from the 3-dimensional point of view about higher dimensional aspects. We barely know how to talk about time. My first father-in-law was a physicist, and he was involved in creating all of the particle accelerators in the world. He loved to talk about time. He understood time a lot differently than you and I do. And it was fascinating to listen to him. I didn't understand 3/4 of what he talked about, but it was fascinating hearing him talk about aspects of time. My son is an Air Force pilot, and he's fairly high up in accountability. He is now an Air Force major. And when he first went into the Air Force, I said, there's only one thing I ask of you. And that is that if you ever discover the truth about aliens, that you know that they're here, you don't have to tell me right away, but before I die, you have to share with me what you know. You have to tell me. And at the time, he sort of rolled his eyes and he went, oh, Mom, there's no such thing as aliens. He really believed that there weren't. And then about 2 years ago, he came home for Christmas and he said, Mom, did you see those videos of the Navy pilots seeing unidentified objects? And I said, yeah, I saw those things. What do you have to say about them? Do you think that they were aliens? You know, what's the scuttlebutt in your level of discussion about what happens up in the air? And he said, well, what I can say is now I don't know. Before, I was pretty sure that there wasn't anything. Now, I don't know. I'm not a yes, but I'm not a no. So that was really fun to see. And I said, well, you know, the promise is still on. If you ever find out for sure, you've got to tell me before I die. And he laughed and he said, I will. But I haven't had any confirmation. There are lots and lots of stories in formats that we can now access of people who have had connection with aliens. Whether you believe the stories or not, whether you think that they are true, you know, we don't really have any way of validating that. And it's fun to sort of muck around in those things. There are people who have made stuff up. There are, and I do want to say that perhaps the most outrageous stories are not necessarily the ones that are untrue. And so much of this stuff happens other dimensionally and happens outside of what we understand how things happen, so that we don't always know how to tell the truth. And if you are looking at those possibilities, your body will give you signals. And if you're not getting any signals from your body, the answer might be, not time to know what exactly is the case here. Stephanie said, we're not very good at identifying words for emotion. Oh, yes. Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart is a phenomenal book. We here in 3 dimensions are still struggling with how to describe our emotions, because our emotions basically happen at a physical level, but also at an energetic level, because they are waves of energy, regardless of what the emotion is. Anger is a wave of energy. It's a sine wave, literally going through our energy field. We create that sine wave. We literally generate that reaction. It doesn't just happen to us. It's not coming in from anything else. It's not something that anything outside of us is generating. We have an experience. We look at something. We hear something. We're going through a physical process, and we have reactions happening inside. We have emotions happen. We are generating those emotions, those reactions inside our energy field. When we stop those reactions because it's scary or painful or something else, we don't like it, doesn't feel good to us, then we have a solidified emotion that stays in our energy field. And if it stays there too long, quite often it titrates down into our body and shows up as discomfort, upset, disease, etc., broken bones, etc. Yeah, that's Stephanie. Thank you for making that point. It's a really good point. Folks, I'm here for another 5 minutes or so. I have a client just after the top of the hour, so I'll only be here for the total for an hour today. Any other questions or anything else you'd like to say? This has been so great to talk with you today. Tina's giving me praise. Tina's always giving me too much praise. Thank you. You are welcome. Thank you, Tina. I really love this. You know, this is what I love to do most. Well, I love to listen and respond and have things come true. When I was 18, I had an experience and I had to make a decision that was very, very painful. And I asked for guidance. I prayed. I still thought there was a big man in the sky. And I prayed and I promised God that if God would guide me through that very, very difficult experience and get me through to the other side, that I would dedicate my life to serving God. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what was going to be asked of me, but I just knew that I was pretty desperate and I needed to have some skin in the game and that I couldn't just ask for this. I had to do something in response to asking for this help. And that's really what my life has been about. And the way that I do that is by being of service for those who need it. And those people show up and they let me know what they need. And if there's a way that I can provide that or help them, then that also is shown to me. And it's why my guide said, we're not going to give you people who need to learn that connecting with the unseen is possible. We're going to give you the people. We're going to bring people to you who are ready to go those next steps. They understand that connecting with the unseen is possible, and they want to know how to go forward with that, and they want their questions answered, and they want to know how to answer their own questions. They want to know how to find their own way. That just gave me tingles. It's a great way to leave this. All of us want to feel good. Any of us who are embodied, whether you're a human being, whether you're a cat, whether you're a horse, whether you're a snail, or whether you're a plant or an amoeba, everybody just wants to feel good. And those of us who are embodied and are looking at and struggling sometimes, but really yearning to understand and to move forward and to raise our vibration because it feels good, because we have a longing there, not because it's something that we should do. But those of us who are there, we all have the ability to help others who are coming behind us. We have the ability to literally open the way for those who are coming behind us. And I made my commitment with that when I was 18. But any of us who have that longing to go forward and know more and work in this realm, in our own way, we've committed ourselves to this work at some point in some way in our lives. And it's why that longing is pulling us forward. And so I'm just helping people who are coming along with me as those who have been before me open that way for me by asking, by committing, by questioning, by continually staying in the inquiry and resting a while on their journey if they were tired, but never stopping and always letting themselves trust that they were being carried forward by benevolent forces and for the good of all. Stephanie, you're so welcome. Thank you, my friends, for connecting with me, for corresponding with me. This will be a recording on my Facebook page, and I encourage you to let other people know this. If you think that they'd be interested in joining me every Friday morning at 9 o'clock Central Time. And this is the first time I used this technology. This was wonderful. And from my experience here, it looks like we're going to have good sound on this video and a good, clear picture. Although I wish I didn't have so much glare on my glasses. I'm going to work next on getting that changed so you can see my eyes. My eyes really do exist here. So thank you, folks. I love you all. Hope everybody has a great weekend, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye. Stephanie, just one last thing. I will share the technology. I will connect with you. Hi, Susie. Good to see you. Thanks for being with us. See you next week, folks.